Hello and welcome to the TOA16 studio. My name is Derk Marseille, head of media at totem.co. I'm joined by
Daniel Bonner
of
Razorfish
and Will Sansom of Contagious.
So could you tell us, Will, what you are talking about here at TOA16?
Absolutely. We're doing a presentation called Cracking the Code of Creativity, which is basically an exploration into whether we can use data science to find out more about creativity, specifically in marketing and communications.
So, and if the answer then is yes, what do you do with it?
Well, I think try and change the way you work and the way you behave, because marketing has tended to follow specific rules and processes for 50, 60 years, and everything's changing, so we need to behave differently. And hopefully what we've got is some instructions for how to behave differently.
And how was it possible that these constructs in our head of how to do marketing and communications remained so long?
I think it has a lot to do with media types. So for a long time there were only specific places you could do marketing, on a billboard or in a magazine or on TV, but now there are just hundreds of thousands of new platforms, appearing every day. So marketers have a lot more to think of. And to achieve creativity on these platforms takes different ways of working, so I think that's why.
Yeah, so Daniel, could you also share some, multiple channels now, channels all around, hundreds and thousands of channels, so how does this influence the workflow at Razorfish?
Yeah, well, we often don't start with the media channel first. We start with trying to solve a problem, and I guess that's expanded and broadened the opportunities for marketing and advertising agencies. Because where does the line of marketing and advertising stop, and where does product development start, or where does the invention of services begin? So that's, I think, quite liberating for us, and that having that, I guess, broad toolkit with which to work, of which when you break down some of those boundaries and buckets, you actually have more opportunity to do stuff.
It actually sounds like every different project, like building a company almost.
Yeah, in some respects, and the amount of capabilities and skill sets required mean that it's rarely the exact same team solving the next problem. It might be you need to swap out 2 or 3 pieces of the puzzle and bring in new people to kind of help get you to where you need to get to.
Yeah, so in this digital age, of course, that we're now going into or are already in, depending on the client, of course, if they have this level of awareness. You bring in like technicians, you bring data scientists, AI, VR, you name it, all the buzzwords. So how does it work in practice?
Well, sometimes we have permanent staff, and we have a mix of partners that we work with as well. So we will collaborate with people from outside of our agency, different agencies and companies if we need to. We also are always constantly training and evolving our own talent pool to make sure that we are prepared to do whatever it is we need to do. And of course we have some core strategic approaches which lead us to at least understand the problem, and that's half the battle, is understanding the problem rather than starting on the solution, because you have to make sure you're actually answering the right question. And only at that point then do you know who it is you're going to need, who you need to bring in, and we're a very open and inclusive culture, and I think as we found, as also with our experiment, the thing we're going to present today, you have to be more open and inclusive to working with different people all the time, because the same format will not necessarily work next time. Success doesn't naturally breed success. You have to face every challenge in a completely new way.
Yeah. So tell us about the experiment that you're going to present about.
So basically what we did was we needed first a data set to work with, and we thought, what's the best data set for great creativity? So we looked at what is generally regarded to be the measure of great creativity in the Marcoms world, which is the Cannes line. It's like the Oscars of the advertising world. So what we did was take their Cannes archive, which is where the last 15 years of award-winning creativity is stored, and then Razorfish's amazing data science team basically let loose an algorithmic army on it to see if they could spot patterns, trends. And it was really interesting because I think we expected to find some things that we didn't, and there were some things we didn't expect to find that we did. Based on that, we then started to kind of draw some kind of, I guess, interpretations and insights. But that's the data science approach. You've got to wait to see what the data shows you before you draw conclusions, as tempting as it is to do it the other way around.
Yeah.
Okay, but then actually you started at the end. You started at the end product and not at the beginning. So how do you work your way back then?
Well, it's really interesting because I think what you have to do is you change actually how you build the presentation and this piece of thought leadership. You actually have to do the data mining and then say, right, how are we going to structure the argument? And is this even going to be something about practical rules, or is it going to be more philosophical? And you know, you've just got to be willing to work in that way. And we've partnered before on writing these kind of big seminar presentations, and this was a very different process for everyone involved.
Yeah, I read on your LinkedIn that you rather drink beer than actually talk about it. Is that true?
Guilty.
Yeah, guilty. Yeah, so I mean, talk about the beer bottle concept, because in the end that came out, if I understand.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was an interesting thing. So part of what we do, I run the consultancy division of Contagious, and Contagious is a company that helps companies achieve the top 1% of creativity, and we have editorial products. But I run the consultancy where we partner with brands and with their agencies to do exciting, innovative new work. And that was a great example of a new way of working that I described at the beginning, where we worked for the client, Heineken, but with their lead agency to develop a new kind of mobile tactical execution, which ended up being a beer bottle that interacted with music in a live environment as you were drinking. So,
yeah,
fun thing.
Yeah, it sounds fun, but how can I then connect this to like really understanding the problem that Heineken at that time then had? Because as I understand it, this is actually at the core of the product each time you start something.
Well, that was why it was good. I mean, I think at the time they knew that they needed to do something interesting with mobile, something potentially with connected products, something also they could leverage at their big events where they had pouring rights. So it was actually quite a practical brief, but we knew that it couldn't be something practical in terms of the execution. It had to be emotive and something that people would naturally Instagram, tweet, spread, share, and amplify. But yeah, I mean, we thought of ideas with apps and different solutions, but at the end of the day, it was something centered on the product that ended up winning, and obviously that's great if you're an FMCG market, so keep it centered on the product, so they were happy with that.
Yeah. So lots of tech people here today. You're testing your case for the first time in such kind of. What reaction did you have so far?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have yet to present it, but when we do, and I guess outside of this environment, when we have approached different people from different backgrounds, they're always intrigued with the process. They're always intrigued with how a creative advertising marketing company and then a bunch of data scientists and technologists, how they even work together at all, like the whole collaboration, because I guess our world has been about directors and writers and art directors and copy, you know, those sorts of roles working together. So like, how does data science work? Because it seems like in itself that would maybe bring up some problems, but it doesn't. You know, I think we have to be open to working with new fields and new and dense expertise in particular subject matters. And there's one thing about having data, but unless you can truly understand it and interrogate it and interpret it, it's like a language. And unless you can really understand it and the nuances of it and the contexts of it, then we feel we're not going to be able to move forward. We're not going to be able to create services or products or solutions for real people in the real world, you know. And that's possibly something that advertising and marketing has been guilty of not doing, not answering real people's problems, just actually just promoting products on behalf of companies without considering the end user at the end of the day.
Right. So let's talk a bit about Berlin now, as some people describe it, startup capital of Europe, meaning digital startups. You regularly visit Berlin. What's your feeling now about Berlin as being this creative hub?
Well, you know, certainly I can speak on behalf of, we have one of our offices is here in Razorfish offices in Berlin, and the talent pool is a very young, hungry, ambitious, kind of no barriers, you know, liberated, very liberal kind of talent pool, which has some benefits and some disadvantages. There's a tendency for them to want to go and pursue their own dreams and start their own companies and start their own businesses. And at the same time, we're obviously trying to harness that energy on behalf of our clients to try and build a culture, a consistent culture that we can kind of, to make sure that we can continue to do work, you know, that's of a certain standard. And of course, if your talent pool is constantly shifting and off pursuing their dreams, that can be quite tricky. So I guess you've got to live with the advantages and the disadvantages of that hunger and that ambition. And you know, I couldn't talk about the infrastructure because I don't live here, but the idea of, you know, being able to get access to space, get access to people quickly, I believe is much easier in Berlin, and I guess that has also helped accelerate some of those growing pains that all small businesses have, all startups have, where, you know, they need somewhere to work and they need to be able to access the right type of people to advise and guide them. So I think that there's clearly an advantage to being here. And of course we benefit too, because we get to hire some very, very smart people who've been through the process of starting their own business, which in itself is an incredible journey to go on.
Yeah. So to close this interview off, something about TOA. Could you share like first impression?
Yeah, first impressions are that it's a great lively energy here. I don't think either of us were entirely sure what to expect, but you know, seeing people queuing outside the studios is great. There's a hunger for the content, I think, which is great, but it seems like a very diverse bunch of attendees, so we're just really excited to get on and see the reaction that our content gets, because we really believe in it.
Yeah. So after Brexit, this interview is now being held a couple of weeks after Brexit. Not time to move the entire company to Berlin?
No, but thank you for still accepting the interview and allowing us to do it and making us welcome. So yes, no, we haven't had time to move to Berlin just yet, but maybe we will before Article 50 strikes.
Yeah. Okay. So some first impression of you about TOA?
Yeah, sure. The energy, the amount of people here, there definitely seems to be a diverse, you know, entertainment going on. There's a band going on in the background right now. So I think that mix of, I guess, ambition, and there's clearly kind of like, culturally, it seems like something that's important to the people attending. Haven't got to see any of the sessions yet, and once we've presented, we hope to kind of sit in on some of the sessions and seminars that are going on as well. So it's going to be cool.
And drink some beers.
And maybe
together.
drink some beers.
Yeah, it's a couple of them. Yes.
Maybe one.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you here for joining us in the studio at TOA16.